Very well. Thank you for staying with us. The conversation, this first leg of the conversation this morning, is about what many, especially Nigerians, has perceived as a disconnect, especially talking about the promises, the lifestyle of the ruling class, for years. But then with the current administration, especially at the center, there is, according to the people, a disconnect between the economic reality of what we have right now from May 29, in which the subsidy is gone, statement has been made. The center has refused to hold in Nigeria, talking about our economy, the removal, the hardline policies of the government, by the way, the removal or the discontinuation of the payment of subsidy on PMS, which the country, the leaders have said it is necessary and it's something we have to do. We can't keep paying, to just few individuals fleeting the country with millions, billions, and trillions of naira. That is a decision that might bite hard, that will bite hard on the nation and its people. But then there is a light at the end of the tunnel, if, whatever that means right now. And of course, the floating of the naira, those two policies have obviously resulted in the, possibly record high inflation rate that we have right now, possibly oscillating around 41%. And of course, the food inflation, around 31, 32%, and food inflation around 40% or thereabout, in which has thrown many persons, many manufacturers almost out of business. Some companies have had to leave Nigeria due to fluctuations in policies. Now, in spite of this and what the nation is facing, and many persons not being able to do as they want, to buy as they want, to eat as they want, just basic human needs in Nigeria, just because the policies of the government and the way the country is being handled has thrown them into this level that possibly they would never have thought they would be, because many, I tell you, are just working to feed. And it is the reality. But with this reality and the continuous promise of the people in power to say, just bear with us, just endure. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. We are almost turning the corner and prosperity is almost here. The renewed hope agenda, we are with you. It is not really the same with the people at the end of affairs. Talk about the National Assembly and then even the judiciary, because we are hearing there is an increase, 300% increase, in the emoluments. And then talk about the executive led by the number one himself, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and the kind of lifestyle that people have been saying that you can't keep telling us to hold on, to endure this hardship, but it seems like nothing is changing from your head, from your end, and people are saying the profligacy that we are seeing right now, maybe it has never been seen since 1999 of this democratic venture in which the nation is in right now is looking like an expensive, government. The spending, and these are part of what we are going to be talking about this morning. The disconnect, or people in government, their supporters will say maybe Nigerians are just being overly critical, of these things that are perks of office. If you get to that office, there are things that are attached to your office, and you must have them. It's not because you put them there. It's just the reality, and it's not their fault. It's just what is needed to run that office, and Nigerians should not just be overly, critical of them. We will be talking about that now, as we are being joined by a lawyer and, of course, a public affairs analyst, Jacob Sule. He joins us from God's own country, the US, and let me add that he is a doctoral student at the George Washington University in Washington, D.C., and, of course, the executive director of I Read to Live initiative. Mr. Sule, thank you for joining us again.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Mr. Lufemi.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to be on the show this morning.
Thank you very much for joining us. In spite of the huge time difference, we don't take it for granted. Thank you for doing this for your nation as well. Very quickly, you heard my introduction, and of course, several pictures, several videos have emanated. Although we'll get to that, but to start from here, do you think the thought of some people saying, like, the disconnect, the reality of what we have right now is not the same thing as the people upstairs sacrifice, sacrifice, sacrifice has been the language that the leaders have been telling the citizens, but it's looking like it's not the same way with them. Are Nigerians being overly critical, or is just the reality?
Thank you very much, Femi, for that great question. And first, good morning to all Nigerians, and thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Quite frankly, I do agree with you that there are so many disconnects between the Nigerian people and the ruling class. Nigerians are not being overly critical. Nigerians are just much more aware and have woken up to the realities in which they are faced with in their daily lifestyle. Unfortunately, the ostentatious lifestyle of the ruling class in Nigeria is a subject of scrutiny, particularly as the country continues to experience pervasive economic struggles. And the disconnect has led to a deep tone, like disregard for the needs of electorates who cast their ballots to have these leaders in office. You know, the continuous display of wealth and extravagance lifestyle contradicts the poverty and hardship that we're experiencing as Nigerians. A significant population of the Nigerian people continually faces this challenge in several ways. The practice of our ruling class and our political elites has shown a continued lavish spending, whereas public officials frequently indulge in luxurious goods. They drive expensive cars, they fly business classes abroad for medical attention. Their kids are living abroad, and they're totally disconnected from the realities in which ordinary Nigerians are faced with. And this has continually alienated the leaders from actually experiencing what ordinary Nigerians have faced. So, to be very direct, I agree with you. There's a huge disconnect, and I think that must be nipped in the bud as quickly as possible. The federal government of Nigeria, the state governments, everyone must rise to the occasion and ensure that they take action to curb the growing hunger, disconnect, and make sure that they are careful and concerned about the genuine needs of Nigerians.
It is just as the way you have said it. The disconnect is what we are talking about this morning, especially the profligacy. Now, let's put it into proper context. And, you know, just a few days ago, a few weeks ago, there was this picture that was circulated that, okay, especially with the CNC himself, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, it was known, and I think that has been the practice for a while, the Nigerian president rides in a Maybach, Mercedes Maybach. But then, just a few days ago, and I think that's what we have on our screen right now, the president was seen riding in a Cadillac Escalade, armored vehicle Cadillac Escalade. And Nigerians are saying, yes, if actually we have a prosperous nation, in reality, the kind of nation that everybody is going about their business, you know, just moderate challenges, you can say the leaders should have whatever they are having. Now, what has happened to the Mercedes Maybach? And now the president is riding in a very expensive Cadillac Escalade that you have just seen. And just after that, there has been this back and forth about the need for a new presidential jet. The current fleet is not good enough. There is a House committee that said they take a tour, or they took a tour of those fleets, and they saw that it has been rickety, it is faulty. And, you know, a new presidential jet was bought, rather, during the administration of Olusegun Obasanjo, 19 years old. And people will say, for a 19-year-old plane, that is not bad at all. But there was that call that a new plane should be gotten. The National Assembly are saying the supplementary budget doesn't have, or didn't have, that implement of the confirmation or approval of fund for a new plane. The back and forth, no approval, there is approval. Some persons came and said, we have seen this thing abroad. It has been bought. It has the signage. It has the picture, the number of the Nigerian Air Force. There was a denial. But last few days, when the president traveled to France, I think the bubble has busted. There is no more need for denial. In fact, because it was confirmed by people in presidency that yes, the president traveled to France on that supposed working visit in a new Airbus. Although they said it costs very less, it's quite, It came at a very good rate. But Nigerians are saying, how come? Whenever it has to do with the leaders, whatever you want, possibly not even need, whatever you want, you get. The National Assembly, bought 160 million naira worth of SUVs for themselves few months ago just because they said the roads are bad. So when these same people come out to tell you and I, the Nigerian people, 200 million of them or less, to say, hold on, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, the people get to second guess them. You have said the Nigerian people are not delusional. It's not just being overly critical. It is, the reality. My question is this, Mr. Sule, but there are perks that come with those kind of high positions. Are you saying that they should jettison it just because Nigerians will not find it funny? Is it justifiable?
Thank you very much. That's a very great question. To be very frank and direct, I think there's a total disconnect and it is not justifiable at this point in time in our country. We're going through a lot of difficult times in all round of the economy. It's a very difficult time and challenging time for Nigeria. And quite frankly, it is very disheartening that our leaders have continually and deliberately ignored the needs and yearnings of Nigerians. I recall a few months ago, I was live on your program to discuss the need or whether or not the purchase of the supposed airline that the presidency said he wanted to get, the aircraft actually was justifiable. It is so much, it gives a lot for us to think that in this growing times when things are not too well, our leaders are putting so much money on very expensive things. When you were doing your introduction, you talked about the vehicle in which the president is using. I don't expect the president to drive a 21 or a regular Toyota Corolla or that. We understand he's the president of our great country and we want him to be safe. If you look at the cost of the vehicle that you showed on your screen, with the current exchange rates, that vehicle goes for between about 83,000 US dollars to 156. When you do the currency conversion, that is over 200 million naira to buy just a car for the president. And that would not be the only vehicle in the convoy of the president. And then things like this bothers me. And if you look at around the world, Nigerian politicians are among the highest paid in the world with exorbitant salaries and perks in a country where the minimum wage is relatively less than $100 per month. The disparity between the earnings of politicians and ordinary workers are staggering. Just like you said now, we recently found out that the presidency had bought a new aircraft. I would expect that by now there should have been adequate information there in the public. This aircraft was bought by taxpayers' money of you and I, of our parents that served this country for 35 years. And you find out on social media that a foreign country has to be the one to break this news to us that, oh, a new aircraft is being flown by the president of Nigeria. We need to look inwards and actually hold this government accountable. These were the same set of people who ran on the campaign of transparency and then making life bearable for people. But what have we seen? Deceit, misalignment of policies, parochial interests of our politicians, and the politics of Emilokon. The Lagos entity are the ones now ruling and presiding over the affairs of our great nation. And I think we really need to address the issue of our leaders needs to wake up to the realities of what we're facing in Nigeria. The ruling class have not really done so well recently. And it is rather unfortunate. You see them commission grandiose projects, and then these are projects that are not even directly addressing the needs of Nigerians at this time. I would expect that someone like the addition of the Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who has been a one-time governor of Lagos State, will look inwards and actually set up policies that would actually address the immediate needs of Nigerians, this government has shown lack of empathy. They don't care about the needs of ordinary Nigerians. The policies are misaligned.
Jacob, if I may butt in here, would that be fair for you to say this current administration has not shown empathy because there have been series of intervention, palliative intervention, like 3 or 4 of them. There have been more money pushed down to the state for the state to take care of its people. There have been interventions, even at the National Assembly. Some of them have been accused to say you collected constituency projects. Some of you had millions and millions of naira to go back to your constituency and help. Governors have more money. The removal of the subsidy, has allowed for the FAC allocation to improve, and more money have been disbursed. Even in this dear state of ours called Ocean, the IGR, the FAC allocation has improved. So will it be fair to say the government at the center doesn't have the empathy, or you are saying those things are just drops in the ocean? Would that be fair?
Femi, to be very honest with you, I practice as a lawyer and I understand very carefully my choices of words. The government at the center lacks empathy. They lack empathy. Nigerians are frustrated. There is hunger in the land. When this government came into power, how much was a bag of rice? This is 1 year after the government came into power, and they have told Nigerians, you and I, to be patient. Can you tell me one solid thing in which this government has done to cut the cost of governance in Nigeria? In every 3 weeks or thereabout, we see new announcements of portfolios, SSAs. What are these people doing? Can't this government run without these people in office? What empathy has this government shown? This is like, we need to really look at this old issue and unbundle it. For 3 decades of my existence, we have seen successive governments do palliatives. You share money around with people, but policies that can address the basic root of our challenges have been disregarded. Why should we as a country in the 21st century still go about in market squares giving 5,000 naira, giving half bag of rices? Is that what will sustain a family for 4 years? And these are leaders come abroad. They see the way things are done in Western countries. But when they return home, they turn deaf ears to things that are happening. They come abroad to seek for medical attention. They send their kids abroad to come and study. They see the roads in our country, in other parts of the world. They see how security is being taken in other parts of the world. But what is the problem and challenge with our leaders? People are frustrated. Just a couple of weeks ago, Nigerians took to the streets to exercise their fundamental human rights by protesting. As I speak to you right now, a few persons are still held in detention for simply exercising their human right to protest. And then you say that I am not being fair? No. There are families that cannot even afford 3 square meals. Kids have dropped out of school. Parents are languishing in hospital. Workers are not even being paid as at when due. So what exactly is the empathy from this government? As I speak to you right now, there are reports that I read yesterday that the president is probably on his way or had arrived in France for medical attention, which wasn't disclosed. When the president will return, that was not involved, that was not included in the press release. And you see
Ajuri Ngelale, the special advisor to the government and media, or the president rather, his spokesman said, is a work visit to France. Whatever that means.
What working visit does the president of Nigeria has to go do in France that cannot be explicitly communicated? Femi, the ruling class of Nigeria have taken Nigeria for granted for too long. And there's a need for Nigerians to wake up and begin to hold government accountable, both at the local, state, and federal level. We cannot continue to run Nigeria as a banana republic, where just a few, an insignificant fraction of the Nigerian political elite are the ones deciding how our collective commonwealth are being shared. You find politicians doing things that are unimaginable, spending and living extravagant lives. Whereas Chukwemeka in the east, Musa in the north, Jumoke in the southwest cannot put food on their table. They can't even sleep with their eyes open. Has this government done its own bit? It has done a little. But the government itself should look inwards and take drastic action to cut the cost of governance.
Right.
Until this government shows empathy and concern for the genuine needs of Nigerians, we would continue to have conversations like this without actually enjoying the genuine benefits and dividends of the democracy that you and I deserve in our country.
Right.
All right, sir, like you rightly stated, you spoke about the extravagant spending of the president. And yes, it was in the news this morning that Tinubu's foreign trips cost Nigeria 2.3 billion naira in 6 months. And yes, we see that as a whole lot of money, looking at what the country is going through at the moment. What do you feel is the way out of this? And do you feel this trips is necessary for the president at this moment?
Thank you so much. First, we need to understand that countries do not exist in isolation. There's need for public, or let's say global diplomacy, to have conversations and all that. But to be very frank with you, there are some trips that are rather not heard than being heard. The monies involved in undergoing these trips, if we reroute those monies and put into long-lasting projects in Nigeria, set up infrastructures, I think we would have a recap of the benefits of these things in a long time. Most of these trips in which you see our leaders go for, many of them just come and give presentation for at most 30 minutes, and that's done, and they jet back to Nigeria. And then after 3-4 years, we cannot point and say this is what that trip has led to. We do a lot of traveling in Nigeria. We always want to go abroad and say, oh, XYZ is attending and presenting at this conference. But in the reality, we're just going there to mark register. How many FDI has this current administration brought? And I'm not excusing this current administration. We've had successive government take multiple trips abroad. Oh, we are going to look for investors. How many investors have they brought? Let us even trickle down to our dear state, where your station is located in Osun. The current government made I could recall during campaign, when the government said we will do this, we will do that, we will do that. This is a couple of years down the drain. Can you point to any credible investment in the state of Osun as we speak? I recall, yes, a couple of days ago, the government in Osun received some delegation, and we hear political statements like Osun is ready for business. But, the reality on ground is we need to really begin to ask questions. What are the importance of these trips? If we look back in the past 4 years, the foreign trips in which we've had, how have they changed the life of ordinary Nigerians on the streets? The answer is we haven't seen so much changes. And I think our leaders need to wake up to the reality and address this issue that could lead to increased social unrest and further undermine the legitimacy and political system. And if care is not taken, we're sitting on a time bomb, and it will consume all of us if our leaders do not wake up to the reality and address their ostentatious lifestyle and the continued poverty and hunger in the land.
Okay, sir, don't you also feel that cutting down on most of these trips would affect the international relationship between Nigeria and other countries? Yes, because it is the duty of the president to, go on visit, international visit, to speak on some issues, to find lasting solutions to some issues as well. But don't you also feel that cutting down, looking at what Nigeria is going through, because some countries don't have a problem with their president going out on trips, on a regular basis, because yes, everything is okay at the moment in that country. So don't you feel that cutting down some of these trips would affect our relationship with other countries, looking at the fact that we can't even, Nigeria as a whole can't be governed without help from other foreign countries? Don't you feel that might affect the country at large?
This is my personal opinion. I don't speak for government. I don't hold brief for them. The past 3 decades of my existence, government has had consistent and consecutive trips. How well have those trips affected the lives of ordinary Nigerians? I do not disregard the place of international diplomacy. I do not disregard that. But we need to be critical and say the truth. The trips in which that our government have had in the past, how much more have we seen the importance of those trips? That's a question. This government, to the best of my knowledge, has gone on multiple trips. The previous government before this embarked on multiple trips. Even as a matter of fact, many of these leaders, when it's in a few months' time now, you would see many government leaders, political elites, jetting out of Abuja, Lagos, all the way to New York to attend the UN General Assembly. And then you ask questions, year in, year out. Our leaders travel all the way to attend these conferences. How has the conferences in its real self, with the monies we spend, with multiple aides flying around, what are the lasting legacies that those trips have brought to Nigeria? So we need to put the conversation in perspective. I am not against those trips. Like I tell my colleague at work, the times in which we used to do virtual check-ins and have meetings, you can send it via mails. All of those countries in which our presidents are going to, they have diplomatic representation in Nigeria, either in Abuja or in Lagos. These conversations can be had. If it's a paper presentation, these conversations can be had virtually, and we don't need to spend reckless billions of naira just for a trip. And on those trips, you have either the governor or the ministers go along with a very ridiculous entourage. We saw what happened in Dubai recently, to an extent that even celebrities have been allegedly said to have been funded by the president to go on those trips. So we need to be realistic about ourselves. How many times have you seen the president of the United States jet out of the country to attend frivolous events? Just a few days ago, I understand that the government, the president of Nigeria was in Guinea. The details of that conversation, has it been made public? We only see news headline. The president signs one MOU or that. How does that affect the lives of ordinary Nigerians and all that? And you hear again, the government says they are going to have conversations on the ease of doing business. But small businesses are not thriving in Nigeria. Charity begins at home. We need to look inwards and see how we can make our country governable.
Yeah.
Let people put food on their table before you go abroad to tell external people or foreigners to come and invest in Nigeria. Until you and I can do business, work freely without being kidnapped, our families are secure, my kids and your kids can go to school, our parents can get access to their pension, having worked for multiple years for government, the government has no business in continually spending ridiculous amounts of our taxpayers' money to go on these trips that have shown little or no importance on the state of affairs of our great country.
All right, so let's also take you back to the topic for today, a disconnect between the lifestyle of our leaders and the hardship the citizens are going through. So who is to blame here? Is it the system, is it the people, or the Constitution?
That's a very great question. I'm not a judge to pronounce anyone guilty or otherwise. I am just speaking from my own point of view. The system is broken. There's distrust, there's corruption. The people themselves, the people have a role in this. If Femi becomes a senator today, Femi would have to receive people maybe 100% increase from those in which he has. Femi's phone would begin to buzz every time, and the people expect Femi to pay for his constituent members' naming ceremony, to send his or her kids abroad. So we as the people ourselves, we contribute to the continued lifestyle in which we have. So to put this in perspective, the system is currently broken, And the people themselves, which I don't blame them, they demand too much. But the energy in which people are channeling into demands, we are having a misplaced priority. And so the idea is people need to hold government accountable. And in doing that, we must realize that the fact that Femi becomes a senator does not mean that we should not hold Femi into account and question what he's doing. They are constituency projects. But what you see now is that politicians brand constituency projects in their names, whereas these are things that are legitimately the rights and dividends of democracy. So to answer your question directly, it is not about I saying the government is to be blamed, the citizen. No, it is a true system that has broken down. So the people need to become more conscious and hold government accountable, and also government itself should become more responsible and step up to the occasion.
Very well. And to just put it there, you spoke about the the trip to Dubai, and I think that was COP 28. And, the conversation around that time in which many persons complained about the size, although many analysts talked about the size too might have a thing to do because you are talking about the nation's commitment to these climate conversations and that you are ready for the green energy, green working effect on things. And so they feel for the people that are having that conversation, for the people that are doling out money, to the nations that they feel that are committed, the size matters. But then what is the quality of the size? That's the conversation, because you just talked about many celebrities, people that ordinarily Nigerians will feel, what's this business there? The conversation, died down after that time. But then it has been resurrected again. Ajuri Ngelale, the president's spokesman, talked about it a few days ago to say the COP29, COP29 that will be happening in Baku, that will be in November or thereabout, that they are already working on it, and the president has given the order, the directive, and there is a particular committee that Ajuri, is the chairman of, and they are working on it to see to the size and to cut out some things that are unnecessary. He spoke about the rentage of a $500,000 pavilion, that has happened before, and that they won't be doing that now. The office, will do that. There are some of those services that can be rendered by the people going on that trip or by Nigerian office at that country. And you're wondering, how on earth can somebody rent of 500,000 naira, $500,000 worth of a pavilion for 11 days? These are the things we've been seeing before. Now he has come out to say this, but that time, almost a year ago, that I just complained about this, they didn't talk about this. So this leads me to this particular question of the perceived gaslighting. I think it's becoming unbecoming. And these are the thoughts of Nigerians to say there is a way that when people in power are questioned, they find a way to gaslight you, to make you feel like you don't know what you're saying, to make you feel like you are the one that is delusional, or to explain this thing in a way. I'll give you a statement from Ajuri Ngelale while addressing that particular field, while appropriating and reprobating at the same time. Jacob, listen, and for our listeners as well, he said, there was some deliberate misinformation. These are his words. There was some deliberate misinformation. But the truth of the matter is, we also found that there were government officials who had no business at that meeting. And some with significant at that meeting, and some with significant delegations. And in view of this, His Excellency President Bola Tinubu had approved an audit to be undertaken of that exercise to fully understand and ascertain what happened and what must be done to ensure that what happened never repeat itself in this country. Jacob, how can you connect this for the president's spokesperson to be saying there are people who were deliberate with misinformation, and in the same sentence they said, but the truth of the matter is, we also found that there were government officials who had no business at that meeting? Is this normal? Really?
I mean, I hate to say this, we are a wasteful nation. unfortunately. I read the statement in which you just read out that was written by Ajuri Igalale. And you begin to ask certain questions. Just like you said, the politicians are experts in gaslighting. They make you feel like people are not thinking who approved the list of those that travel with the president. When they got on the flight, even before on the flight, when they passed through immigration, who got them visas? These are basic issues that you want to ask. Anything the government denies, there is an element of truth in it. You know, the issue is Nigerians have been taken for a ride for too long. That statement, watch out for the forthcoming UN General Assembly. Let us see if indeed that statement will be honored. We have seen current, past governments issue such statements that, oh, we are going to cut down the cost of delegation and the number of entourage that travels on those trips, except you have a direct business on those trips or have a direct function. We play too much in Nigeria. And our leaders have taken us for a ride for too much.
If I may quickly butt in, Jacob, you know, the same Algeria said that the UNGA that you're talking about, and they are already working on the size, and just like you said, we take people that have business there to take that particular journey. But the thing is, most Nigerians are not believing, I must tell you, because they feel there is a place of saying, there is a place of doing. In fact, under this administration, we have been here before, in which people have been complaining about the kind of people that travel with leaders, and the government gave a directive to the presidency to say, okay, a particular trip of the president, when it's going out, it's 20 or thereabout. I mean, outside of the country, when he's traveling within, maybe 25, the size of the team of the VP has been cut down, the office of the First Lady, and many offices like that. But then, just immediately after, they go on trips, and you still found people there. In fact, the president has traveled with his two sons, you know, I think to the UAE. And in fact, it became so ridiculous that the president's two sons, in the order of protocol, were standing for introduction before the cabinet members of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That's Yinka and Sheyi. And people are wondering, okay, maybe there is an history of leaders around the world traveling with their family. But how do you explain that you're introducing your children before the cabinet members of the Federal Republic of Nigeria? And at a point, the president's son has even been cited, you know, at the Federal Executive Council meeting. And these are the things that we are seeing. Now, talking about trips, Ajuri Igalale has said that 10 billion naira will be saved from the trip that they are about to go on right now. But do you expect Nigerians to believe them? Or we should still cut them some slack and give them a benefit of that?
Femi, like I said, whatever government denies, there is an element of truth in it. This government is setting very bad precedent for governance and administration in this country, and we must stand against it and condemn it in clear terms. The president's family, his sons, have no business in running the affairs of our great nation. We understand Nigerians did cast their ballots for Bola Ahmed Tinubu, not Sheyi or Yinka Tinubu. And until we put this conversation in context, we will continue to miss the conversation. I am not against governments going on trips if those trips would indeed, in the real time or real sense, bring prosperous and goodness to Nigeria. But what I'm speaking against here is we having an unnecessary entourage following governments to conferences where they rarely contribute and bring in the dividend of democracy back to our great country. We're tired of having a government that turns tone deaf or does not listen to the needs and yearnings of Nigerians. And the government of Nigeria must, as a matter of urgency, look inwards, see how they can fix the public distrust that is on the edge of breaking down, and make sure that they restore that and work tirelessly around the clock to make sure that you and I can have food on our table,
Right.
lives and property are secured, and our kids can have access to school uninterruptedly. Until those things are done,
Right.
we will continue to give what belongs to our kids to other foreigners while we as a country suffers. Keep in mind, charity is at home.
Very well. Charity is at home. You know, we've been talking about the president, and then, you know, some people will say the same thing trickles down, you know, to the subnationals as well, where you see governors living like emperors. And in fact, you know, just at the national level as well, recently, a few months ago, 90 billion naira was voted as arch subsidy, you know, and the same, there have been challenges, there have been information about that fund not being properly used, and we are hearing that there is a need for that fund to be probed. The usage of the fund, 90 billion of Nigerian naira voted for religious pilgrimage at this time, and these are some of the things that we are seeing. And we read in the papers this morning that a particular governor, I think in Bauchi State, you know, is giving out SUVs to traditional rulers, and you begin to wonder, do those traditional rulers, do they need it? The people of Bauchi State, are they prosperous to ignore that, okay, this kind of generosity could be extended? There is a lot to talk about. The vice president's residence was completed. You know, this same administration under 1 year was taken on, completed, and then, you know, commissioned for use. And Nigerians are saying, as the VP been living in hotels, has he been living in uncompleted buildings before? Are there projects that we could still hold on for now and see to the things that are necessary? You know, a lot of things to talk about, but we want to take a break right now from this conversation. We'll go on this quick one. When we come back, we speak to what the Patriots, there is a group of eminent men and women in Nigeria called the Patriot. They visited the president a few days ago, and they let him know, you know, a few weeks ago rather, the situation in which the country is in right now could be handled through a particular process, and they make a lot of recommendations and suggestions, you know, that has to do with the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. You will get into this conversation, but that will be after now. Please, Jacob, please hang in there. We'll be back very shortly. It's still Morning Spring on Western Spring Television. Stay with us.